Welcome back to the show. Today we are joined by one of the nation's leading voices on the fight against human trafficking. Joe Scaramucci is a seasoned investigator, a trainer, a consultant whose work has helped rescue countless victims and dismantle trafficking operations all across the country. You have experience as in undercover operations and policy training, survivor-centered approaches. And so you're a trusted voice in law enforcement, somebody
I
I've
hope
known
so.
a good long
A
while,
while. Yes,
really,
ma'am.
through Susan Peters and Sheriff Parnell McNamara. I mean, we'd have all of you on the show back at Channel 25
Hmm.
talking about the beginnings of Unbound Waco. And that's how I first met you. Since then, you're no longer with the sheriff's office. Is that correct?
No,
Or
that's
you are?
correct. So I'm reserving there, but full time with an organization called SGS, Goal Game Solutions.
Okay, and so what do you do through that?
Almost the exact same thing, but we provide training to law enforcement prosecutors, and then we provide operational support to operations to help identify and recover victims of trafficking.
Yeah. How did you first get involved and interested in that aspect of law
Gosh.
enforcement?
So back in 2014, I had gone to the sheriff about doing a sting, and it was more a child exploitation type operation. It was successful, and then it kind of rolled from there a little bit. He asked me to do another, and as we were progressing in this, I kind of realized pretty quick there were predominantly women, right? There's men that are being trafficked,
Sure.
but predominantly women that nobody really spoke for. Nobody paid, I don't want to say paid much mind to, but we were kind of early in the trafficking world, and they were re- overwhelmingly criminalized, right? But not nobody, at least from the law enforcement side, was really speaking for them or seeing them, and that was kind
See
of
that they
what
were a victim in all
that
this.
they were a victim, that they even could be a victim. That
Right.
that was such an uphill battle, and it was for
Hmm.
me too in the beginning, right? But um, nobody on this side of the fence was really even viewing it that way. It was crime, handcuffs, rinse, wash, repeat. Here we are. So yeah, it was a fairly slow change.
Yeah. So prior to that point when you got involved with the
Yeah.
sting, you what aspect of law enforcement did were you
Gosh,
involved
so
with?
I
Just a
was
little bit of everything?
yeah, well, I was working crimes against people, right? So
Okay.
I was doing everything from homicides to adult and child sex crimes, domestic violence, anything where somebody was a victim of a crime. Um, that's what we're involved in. So I think it was a blessing because I was able to, think about a murder, right? Victims don't cooperate in murders. Nobody says, "Oh, this is who shot me." Um, so it was easier for me to try to look outside the box to circumstantial evidence, that happened. And I think the other thing too is I had a solid dose of humanity, right? Which is hard because I dealt with a lot of victims. So it I think prepped me long term, really teed that up, and I wasn't expecting that.
I think that was something that was interesting um, about, the work of Unbound, that Susan or someone would go along when you'd have the big sting
Yeah.
operations to kind of assess the women
It
as
will.
to whether, they'd just been forced into this horrific
Yeah.
lifestyle as opposed to made a conscious choice.
Yeah. So the whole story with Susan is a pretty interesting one. But I had one victim ever that ran to me and was like, "Oh my God, I need help," and I
Oh,
was like,
really?
"Oh my gosh, like what is happening here? This isn't supposed to play out this way." And I had to
Mm.
call Susan. I didn't know her at the time. And when I tell you she was there in 15 minutes, she was there in 15 minutes. So it kind of set the tone for what happened after, and it made us have a really good working relationship. And it I think on both ends made us really strengthen our roles because now I was looking at not only is Susan here to help triage this person and help see what they can do long term. But it made me kind of adapt what I was doing to more narrowly target women that were being trafficked, to bring them in, because that would be the end product. I say product, it would be the end result, is Susan and them helping. So it really kind of helped solidify, I think, both of our roles, the way we work together.
Yeah, I mean, you even had the opportunity to go, I think, across the world
Yeah.
to kind of the source, if you will.
Yeah, depending on where you look at it. I've been to went to Mongolia
Yeah.
with Susan and that crew. We went to Poland and Ukraine together. I've been to some other countries as well in the Middle East and throughout Europe. But it just kind of it's always interesting to me, because even what's happening in other countries mirrors what's happening in the United States so much. So it helps solidify so much about what we know and how we target trafficking, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Um, when people hear the term human trafficking, they may picture something in their mind, something very different than what
Yeah.
actually happens.
Yeah, I think the number one go-to is kidnapping, right?
Right,
You
right.
see on social media all the time, ladies, be careful, don't go here because there was this man, he was weird. Um, you know, there are just weird people in the world. I
Hmm.
think we all know that, right? And what I try to tell people is, if you are looking for the boogeyman is going to get you. There's no longer the kidnapping at the park or anything like that. It is the the boogeyman literally comes through the internet, into your
Hmm.
home, into the place where you feel safe. You lock the doors to keep the bad guy out. You don't lock the router to keep the bad guy out.
Yeah,
And that's kind of
yeah. In
what
this
we
thing
see.
here, yeah, yeah, and that's the whole ruse, is that they're able to kind of worm their way into your life,
Yeah.
into a young person, particularly who doesn't have those those filters. But I would assume people of all ages can be duped.
Oh gosh, I've seen everything from young children to 80-year-old women. I
Oh my
mean, it
gosh.
really, there's nobody that's immune to it.
Are there misconceptions that people have about human trafficking?
Yeah, I think a couple of the biggest ones is that there is some kind of forced kidnapping type,
Uh-huh.
issue. I think one of the other bigger ones, or probably the second biggest, is that it involves transnational organized crime. Um, and it doesn't. It's such a small number. The last thing I would be worried about really is something internationally based.
Mm.
It's domestic for the most part in the United States. What we're dealing with is predominantly American victims, American suspects, American buyers that are fueling this. Everybody tends to be domestic in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here in Central Texas, what does human trafficking look like?
It looks greatly diminished than what it was 10 years ago.
Um, Good.
Yeah, so no, I would definitely say, we're being along the I-35 corridor. That's going to be huge, right? Because we connect San Antonio, Dallas, Austin. Um, but it really tends to look like your 15-year-old, your 19-year-old neighbor, um, who has economic instability, right? I've never had a
Mm.
victim that was a Harvard graduate with a PhD. It just hasn't happened. I'm sure they're out there, but I've yet to see it. So, I think what it tends to look like is what we don't expect. And it's our neighbors. I think that's really the climate that we're in,
Mm.
especially locally anyway.
Mm. Well, and then that begs the question, what should people be on the lookout for? How could we possibly spot that
Yeah.
something untoward is happening?
So it's difficult to say, right? There's a lot
Uh-huh.
of people that'll tell you want to look for A, B, C, and D. The problem with that is knowledge of the person that's the victim, right? If I don't know the personality, the actions of my victim, how could I ever say that him or her avoiding eye contact, as an example, would be a good sign of human trafficking? It's
Hmm.
it's simply not, right? So what I try to tell people, especially parents, but anybody, teachers, clergy, Anybody who has contact with other people, which should be anybody listening, is just know the people that are around you and know when something isn't right.
Mhm.
Right? That needs to really be the biggest thing. And, in knowing that person, if they're getting into a dark spot where they're disappearing for weekends at a time, or they're schedules are different, yeah, you want to ask questions, right? Hopefully it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with human trafficking, but those kind of day-to-day functions are what's going to change the most.
Mhm. I guess if it's a a student age person, maybe, grades go south and just
Yeah, or who's picking them up from school? They
yeah.
used to ride the bus. Now all of a sudden they're being picked
Yeah.
up by this 23-year-old guy, and we don't know
Mm.
who he is, right?
Mm.
That's a problem, or at least something to question. Attendance. But I know plenty of women and men who will tell you, "Hey, I went to school and I was trafficked after, and
Yeah.
I was there Monday through Friday. Whatever hours they do now, like eight
Yeah.
eight to three or whatever." Um, some people that are like, "Hey, I was a straight A student." You just never know. But I think really the personality shift, or the shift in how they're viewing things and acting really needs to be the biggest
Mhm.
kind of red
Mhm.
flag.
So how has the trafficking landscape changed maybe thanks to technology and social media and devices and stuff?
Yeah, it helps and hurts, right?
Yeah.
As things, we have to catch up. Luckily, in many ways, that's not too terribly difficult. There's a lot of technologies out there that I don't think the general public really knows how easy they are to access, right? So,
Mhm.
um, has it made bad people, has it made their job easier to contact potential victims? Of course, right? There's no question about that. Um, has it also made them more susceptible to being tracked? It has, right?
Mhm.
So even with that, how do you build cases? Technology, right? Anybody who
Mhm.
watches
Right.
true crime
Yeah.
knows that, phone
Yeah.
towers
Yeah.
or whatever, right? Phone towers are kind of old school, but we all know that technology builds these cases. So, the good guys are able to exploit that as well.
So take us through a typical trafficking investigation. What does it look like from
Yeah.
start to finish?
So if you are targeting it, right, um, it begins on the internet, right?
Mhm.
So how do we identify that person? There's a multitude of ways to doing it. It None of which are that hard, right? So the biggest thing is just getting an identification. Once I can do that, then I can go and exploit who they are, right? Not and I say exploit, but dig into, right? That's really where the hard part is, because I have to be able to identify the fact that you're being victimized and identify your victimizer.
Mhm.
Um, Once I can do that, the real goal is to just tell your story for you, right? We're good in doing that in homicides. That's how you solve murders, is you tell somebody's story.
Mhm.
So we just do that with somebody that's alive, and in doing that, it really grants us a lot of strength in our interview processes, in our forensics, things that are going to tell the bigger end of the story. So it's really just it's really just understanding human dynamics and being able to set us up more long term for the interview process and the cell phone exploitation process.
And then from there, as it gets into the court system, I presume you're still very involved.
Yeah, so definitely involved in the court systems, primarily as an expert witness.
Hmm.
And that part always differs jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I mean, it can vary desk to desk within the same office, yet alone county to county, city to city. So there are some states that are very aggressive in trafficker prosecution. There are some that um, are lacking. Luckily, we live in a state that's very aggressive in it. So, yeah, just being able to kind of see those cases out or act as a resource for prosecutions is
Hmm.
kind of more long term when it comes to that.
Yeah, good. So much more I want to talk to you about. We're going to
Awesome.
take a quick break, though, first. In fact, I want to learn more about maybe some of the challenges you face as you try to bring these cases forward. But I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Fox and Co. Bakery, where they bake foxy things. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Friends for Life is a proud sponsor of a very special Christmas, which is a free, joy-filled holiday celebration for individuals with disabilities of all ages and their families. This inclusive community event is hosted in Temple, Texas on Saturday, December 13th, and will feature crafts, games, refreshments, and a special visit from Santa. The Belton Lions Club, in collaboration with Friends for Life, is hosting the 4th annual Pictures with Santa Claus for children with special needs and their siblings on Thursday, December 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Harris Community Center in Belton. There will be children's activities, cookies and cocoa, and vendors with helpful information and goodies. I'm Elizabeth Riley with Act Locally Waco, and I will see you next time.
And we are back with Joe Scaramucci, who is with SGS. What does that stand for?
So it's Skull Game Solutions.
Skull Games
Skull.
Solutions.
Yes. We're the counter trafficking nonprofit with a skull. Yeah, so there's actually a pretty famous trafficker, and one of his quotes was that pimping is not a sex game, it's a skull game. So we're providing the solution to that skull game.
Oh, very, very deep, very thoughtful. What are some of the biggest challenges, though, that you encounter as an investigator or training people to investigate these kinds of things?
Yeah, I think from the law enforcement perspective, right, and having 20 years law enforcement, I'll kind of speak to this. Old dogs, new tricks, right? Gets a little difficult sometimes. I think one of the biggest things we have to overcome is that's not the way we do it.
Uh-huh.
Right. I was
Never been done that way before.
never been done that way before. I actually worked with a very major agency here a while back, and I had the arms crossed. We don't do it that way. This isn't how that works. And when we were all said and done and we finished the operation, it was funny because I had this crusty old detective come up and put his hand on my shoulder, and he was like, "I like it." So I knew we won, right?
You were good, yeah.
But it was the unknown,
Right.
and that's a hard thing to get people to kind of move past. Is you're telling me this, but I've never seen it work. He actually said in one day we've been able to arrest more traffickers than what I have in the last 2 years, and I was like, because you're looking for them, right? Things have changed. So that was great. One of the other things tends to be public perception. And I think this really gets into just, if we're being honest, just gender bias. If you arrest men for their side of this criminal offense and you put it on social media as an example, there's a lot of discussion about how this is the oldest profession. Why are we wasting our time? You shouldn't be doing this. You're entrapping. But if you were to arrest a lot of women for this crime, which I'm completely against, but if you were to, and you can see this on any given press release, the tone changes from the public. It's very the fault of the women. If the women weren't, selling, people wouldn't be buying. And there's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of really harsh discussion on them. So I think public perception as a whole.
Hmm.
You know, we like to think cops aren't public, but like, you know, somebody asked me that, you know, not too long back, like, well, you were a cop. And I was like, yeah, for 8 hours a day. And I was still a member of the public the other 16, right? And, you know, they're having the same perception as anybody else. So, you know, breaking through that barrier, I think, is the hardest across the board.
Interesting. What about the victim themselves? I mean, is it difficult sometimes to convince someone that they really are a victim?
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah. So we were just on an operation in Memphis, actually, and I was asked by the agent to sit on the interview, and everything that came out of this girl's mouth was just complete lie, you know. And I was like, can I just speak, you know? And he see, I go for it, or she did, and I was like, hey, let me explain the things we know already, you know, and you could watch the shift happen, but they're conditioned to be deceitful, right? They're conditioned to accept all of the blame. If you think about it from a legal perspective, it's the lowest level misdemeanor you could have, to be arrested for the crime of prostitution, right? So it's easier for them and for their trafficker, for them to take that offense, trafficker bonds them out of jail, they move on together, versus she's not arrested, he's arrested for a major felony. Now we have all sorts of problems for them. So that tends to be a big issue. The other is, I've seen, unfortunately, where they do say, hey, look, I need help, and then they're arrested, right? Well, we're not really showing that we're here to help. And then one of the biggest is just the sheer trauma that's involved with this, right? So anybody who's had a traumatic event in their life knows that, you know, there are chopped up events that are occurring through this, right? It's just your brain's way of protecting itself. So, you know, one of the biggest things we have to kind of overcome is the perception of the victim being deceitful when they're honestly not, you know. And I just speak to law enforcement as an example, but, you know, following a critical incident like a shooting or something, you're generally not interviewed for several sleep cycles. You're not interviewed for several days because of the way your brain indexes that, right? But now we take victims of trafficking with this complex trauma and we bring them in and ask them to unindex this at our request right now. It gives a lot of perception of them lying, and it's not necessarily that way.
You've conducted hundreds of operations, no doubt, and you mentioned this one, but is there a particular case that really sticks with you because it was difficult, or the impact of it?
I wouldn't say any that were difficult, at least not traumatically difficult. You know, some firsts, obviously. I think my first case that I worked federally was important to me because I watched the trafficker's emotional abuse transition from woman to woman. So it was really interesting to watch him change Jekyll and Hyde for the needs of each person emotionally. That was really, really eye-opening for me. I think... So I did have one that I was actually at a hotel for a conference. It was after hours. I was sitting at the bar with a friend having a drink, and the bartender asked what we did. And I told her, and she left and came back crying. And I was like, what in the world's going on? And she told me, she said, I knew who you were when I saw your eyes. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? And she said, you rescued me from human trafficking a long time ago.
Oh.
And I was like, what? You know, like, what are you talking about? And she began to tell me the story. And when she did, I was like, oh, and I told her the rest of it. And she's like, yeah, that's me. I was like, I had obviously no idea.
Wow.
But we spent a few days together crying. So
yeah, oh
yeah,
my
that
goodness.
was definitely...
She was doing okay?
Yeah, she's doing great. We
Oh.
communicate regularly, trying to bring her on board as a volunteer with us, right? Or as a consultant. So, yeah, no, that's really the only one that I can think of that just jumped out at me.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Kind of a smack in the face years later.
We often hear that recovery for survivors is not linear. So how do law enforcement and community organizations help support long-term people like the lady you just referred to.
That's difficult from the law enforcement perspective, right? Because law enforcement is not designed to do that.
Right, right.
So, we put that expectation on law enforcement, but that's not what the design is. I think for law enforcement, the long term understanding that there is no instant gratification when you do a trafficking investigation, right? Even an operation, I had to tell an agency the other day, it is completely okay to conduct this operation and not make a single arrest today. It is completely okay, and that is completely normal. All we're doing through an operation is building intel for long-term cases, right? So that part can be tricky. When it comes to victim service providers, most of them also understand the same thing, right? This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. One of the trickiest I've seen, and this is, I have a lot of respect for Unbound because they're really good at this, is they're not designed, not every organization is designed to care for every victim, right? They're just simply not. A 15-year-old meth addicted female from Waco, as an example, is going to need different care than a 35-year-old Guatemalan man, is going to need different care than a 60-year-old Mandarin speaking woman. So having the service providers like Unbound that are able to step back and say, this isn't my lane, but I know whose it is, right, is really important. And Susan has always did a wonderful job of that. So those tend to be the biggest things, is just understanding that it's a marathon, and we're going to trip, right? We're going to trip on the way, and that's okay. We just keep running.
So it's a pretty big role that safe housing and counseling and medical care even play in the lives of these victims.
It is. So, how do you ultimately have somebody who's not victimized is somebody who's healthy, who's economically stable, who's not addicted to any sort of drug, things like that. So the ability to care for them and get them out of that cycle is going to be huge. It really is the same as domestic violence. We have to understand that it's a long-term care process.
Yeah. You train people all over. What do you wish every officer or teacher or even medical professional knew about this aspect of your work?
I think the biggest is there is not a single thing in any of this that's black and white, except for the fact that it's a bad thing, right? It's the only thing that's black and white. The gray area involved in this, I was training law enforcement 2 weeks ago, and a couple of officers actually got into a pretty decent argument in the middle of the training, and they came and apologized to me, and I was like, no, I love it. I love it. I would rather you guys fight now and hash the hard conversations out before we're in the middle of an operation.
Sure.
And what I don't think that they were realizing is that every argument you just made on both sides can change with the very next woman walking through the door. Right now, you may have a different perspective, and you may flip-flop simply because everything is gray. There's literally no black and white. So I think that's the biggest, is that you have to understand that there's no wrong answer except for anything that creates harm, right? If it creates harm, that's the wrong answer. If it doesn't, it really is the right answer. It's just, we just don't know until we're there.
Are there some common flags that everyday people, hotel staff, I don't know, neighbors, we talked about earlier, is there something that they should recognize?
Again, that can be difficult because it really depends.
If you don't know them well.
If you don't know them well, but if you don't have context, right? Without context, you just simply don't know. As an example, I was doing a podcast here a while back, and a webinar. And in the middle of the webinar, somebody chatted and said, I have concerns about a neighbor who might be trafficking. They're loading men and women into a van every single day, taking them to work, and then after work, they all come back. And I was like, yeah, that's abnormal, right? This should be a red flag given the circumstances. And it ultimately led to a case being filed and all that, because they did report it. but without the individual circumstances, it's so difficult
Hmm.
to articulate, right? Without prior knowledge of what we're working with.
Yeah, yeah. Um, are there some practical, safe ways the public can, this person got on the chat,
Yeah. Obviously I would say if there's any indication of commercial sex, that
mm,
needs to be red flag number one, right?
mhm.
Um, Beyond that, again, I think it really differs person to person, and it's such a difficult answer to give because you can't pin anything down. Um, but I need to know how my 15-year-old acts. I need to know that my 15-year-old may not be catching the bus home from school every day. Who are they riding with? Who are they hanging out with? Um, you know, I need to know that this woman who is in the middle of some really difficult financial times is rolling into Christmas, right? And,
Yeah.
and that's hard because it's that vulnerability that ultimately leads to the exploitation. And I think the biggest thing is understanding the vulnerabilities that are leading us to that.
Mm.
By the time they're being exploited, it's very difficult to see that because it's intentionally hidden, right? They're intentionally hiding
Oh, right, right, right. How effective are current federal anti-trafficking policies?
it.
Are there things that need to change?
And honestly, I don't think so for the most part. I'm personally, I think federally and through the states, we have good laws. We just don't enforce them the way we should,
Oh,
right? So every state, all 50 states have a human trafficking statute.
mhm.
Federally, there's a human trafficking law. There's numerous human trafficking laws, that are kind of center around that crime itself. Um, we just oftentimes don't enforce those laws because of the difficulty, because we're busy criminalizing the women, because we don't understand them. Prosecutors are like cops too, in some ways, right? And one of those is, well, I've never done it, so I don't know how this will land with a jury. And it's like,
Oh,
well, if you don't try it, you'll never know, right?
yeah.
But yeah, I think laws are pretty solid that we have. It's
Mhm.
just enforcing them.
There are programs out there for reducing demand. If nobody's buying children or whatever, then
Yeah.
But what are some strategies you know of that are really effective that are working in that area?
Yeah, so I can speak locally, right?
Uh-huh.
We used to target demand very heavily. I don't think anybody doesn't know that, right?
Right.
So, or at least anybody that watches the news. So there were some studies that were done several years ago that men that had been arrested for buying said the number one deterrent to purchasing sex was being outed in the community,
Yeah.
right? So if you make that a very real possibility, then it's going to deter it, right? Is it going to push it? It can. I've seen, plenty of blogs where they're like, hey, don't do this in Waco. Go to Austin, go to Dallas, right? Well, if we can make Austin hostile, if we can make Dallas hostile, then we continue to push that. Um, I've seen people flat out say, like, I'm not doing this anymore because. Um, so those are very big. I think going back to public perception is a really important piece of this because we tend to give a pass to the men that are involved in that side of it, and we tend to um, really take a hard stance against the women. And again, I had somebody tell me, well, if women didn't sell their bodies, men wouldn't buy it. And I was like, yeah, well, do you own a Maserati? He's like, well, no. And I was like, well, they sell them. So where's yours? And
Hmm.
he kind of fumbled a little bit, but and I get that that's an extreme example. Um, but I really truly think that there are a lot of men and women out there that think that these are innocent men who just want company, and that's not what this is.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, this work, I would imagine, can be emotionally heavy. How do you cope?
Oh, therapy, right? So I'll be the first, especially for people in law enforcement, to tell you, the cops in particular, start your therapy very young. Don't do like I did and wait till you're wading water. Um, for me personally, I really enjoy getting out in the community. It didn't really occur to me until I was talking about it recently with somebody. And one thing I found is that being out in the public over those years, is what can be emotionally taxing because you're only out seeing the bad parts of the world, right? Um, but man, load up on a Saturday and go to the farmer's market, right? And get out there and have some tacos and go out and do the things in the same community and see the good in it. And for
Mhm.
me, I've never been jaded in the sense that I've never seen the world as a bad place. I've always seen it as a very, very good place. I just think there's a few people who make bad decisions, right? Doesn't mean they're evil. It just means they made some bad decisions. Um, so really getting out and just enjoying the city and the environment really is kind of therapeutic for me.
A big thank you to our sponsor, Fox & Co. Bakery. Check them out for delicious baked goods and your catering needs.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. At TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, Your Bank for Life.
So it's football season, and we can create your outdoor tailgating spaces that is actually a part of your home. Bifold doors that tie in the inside and the outside, and you can gain anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 square feet living space, all while taking in the big game, poolside. Call us at Gather & Co. Kitchen and Bath, where we can create your unique tailgating space.
Hey Waco, meet your new favorite email. It's called the Waco Buzz, the local newsletter that skips crime and chaos and gets straight to the good stuff. New restaurants, hidden gems, weekend events, and stories that make you proud to call Waco home. It's quick, free, and written by people who love Waco as much as you do. Join thousands of neighbors who already start their mornings with the Waco Buzz at thewacobuzz.com.
So, what keeps you committed to the fight year after year?
Oh
And do
gosh.
you see yourself still doing this kind of work maybe in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah. You know, I think the commitment comes from I looked back one time years ago and I was at this kind of crossroads with some things and I said, if I don't do this, who is? Right?
Mhm.
And if I don't do this and somebody else steps in, will they do it to what I believe the quality of the work should be? And I was like, well, I guess I'll go to work on Monday, right? So I still kind of have that. If not me, then who? And if it is somebody who steps up, like what can I do to work with them, right? There's some phenomenal partners out there that are doing just amazing work. And I think of one off the top of my head. We talk probably 5, 6 times a week. He's like, hey, I just saw this. What do you think? And we bounce ideas off of each other. And I think having that communication amongst like the working class of the trafficking space is really, really important. 5 to 10 years, I don't know. I'd like to retire by the time I'd like to enjoy life, carefree, but probably not. I'll probably work till I'm 100. Um, and I think as long as this space will have me, I'll stay in it.
Interesting. Well, I like to end these little talks with a questionnaire similar to the one the
Okay.
late, great James Lipton used on Inside the Actor Studio. It's my take. What is your favorite word, Joe Scaramucci?
Oh, I always tell people I don't have favorites. This is difficult, right? Because I
Okay.
think in life everything's beautiful in its way. Um, my favorite word, I think it would be love, right? I think it kind of embodies so much of good,
Mhm.
you know? So I would say that.
Least favorite word?
Oh God. Can't. Yeah.
I hear that more, I think more than any.
Can't.
That and moist. People don't like the
Yeah, they
word
don't like
moist.
moist, right? But yeah, I
But I
would
hear
say
can a lot.
I would say can't.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
won't. You know, can't to me is won't.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't, try something else.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Ooh. I don't know that I have a creative bone in my body. So, spiritually, I think love, right? I mean, honestly, I
Yeah.
think looking around at the good in the world, there are so many moments that I think if you were to stop and just say, man, that was a God moment.
Hmm.
Whether that just be something as simple as somebody opening the door, you just don't know what their day is looking like, and flowers as an example. It's such
Hmm.
a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just, yeah, I think spiritually, just looking around and realizing there's a lot of things to love in the world.
Yeah. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I think we live in a world that is so quick to judge. And that for me is a really hard turnoff because there's always more to the story, right? And I had arrested a guy years ago, and I got home that night and I cried for hours, honestly. And
Mm.
and because I knew what the public perception was going to be. I knew what it was going to be. But I knew the backstory. And I can't tell the backstory, right? I can't go out and be like, "Oh, well, hold on." Um so I think the rush to judgment is hard emotionally, but it's also hard spiritually because it's just something that we have to pause and work to overcome.
Yeah. I don't I don't think people think of people in law enforcement struggling with
Decisions
having
made.
to having to arrest somebody.
Yeah,
That's a first for me.
the interesting thing about it is no matter what the crime is, you have to understand, and I'll just use a homicide as an example. A murder suspect. I don't know what put you in the position to do this, but what I do know is that there's a mom and a dad who are going to die, and their son's not going to go to their funeral. There's a little boy or a little girl who's going to graduate high school, and their dad is not going to be there, their mom. There's so many other effects that come of this,
Yeah.
right? I'm not 100% these people, somebody commits a homicide, obviously needs to be in prison. But there's a gravity behind that stretches far
Oh, no
beyond,
question.
and that's really the case with almost any crime,
Yeah.
especially in the world we live in now. It's a digital world. So yeah, I would definitely say if people don't understand the gravity of that, from the law enforcement community in particular, but even beyond, they need to take a step back because they're missing something.
Hmm. What's your favorite sound?
Ooh, my favorite sound. I really like all day long. I listen to cello music.
Uh-huh.
That's all I listen to all day.
You're my second cello enthusiast in the last
Really?
few weeks. Particularly loved listening
Yeah.
to cello.
So
That's good. I mean, it's such a beautiful instrument.
I just like that sound.
That's interesting.
I've got really weirdly enough into birding. So I love the sound of birds, but
Uh-huh. Oh no, I hear that a
yeah,
lot too. Birdsong, people
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I think if I had to just
But
sit
a
around and listen,
cello. Oh
such a
man,
beautiful
that is.
instrument. And I can't play anything, right? So it's made even
But I
better.
play the radio. What
There you
is it?
go.
Yeah. What is your least favorite sound?
Oh, complaining. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
I hear that a lot. I live in airports for the most part, so I hear a lot of that.
Oh, I'll bet whining.
Yeah, I don't know. Least favorite sound. honestly, and it goes back to years of dealing with people crying. And I don't like hearing crying.
Right.
It's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Um,
What job, or first of all, I don't know when you decided you wanted to go into law enforcement, but was there something you wanted to do, maybe as a kid, or some career you'd like to try?
Probably a fireman. Yeah,
There you
no.
go.
You know, no, I knew at a very young age I wanted to go into public service of some sort.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't have guessed law enforcement. I know a lot of teachers that would have also not guessed law enforcement, and parents and all sorts of things. I I don't know that I would have chosen another career path. Um, if I did, I could see trying a hand at law school or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, with the goal of, you know, public service.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't.
What job do you know you don't want? No thanks. Let somebody else do that.
I would probably say anything with computers, right? I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
Um, I would I would probably say being a paramedic.
Mhm.
I don't know how they do that job. I think we forget as first responders how incredibly difficult that job has to be with knowing that you are so intimately involved with a person who is passing,
Mhm.
right? And I think we forget that those men and women, they're dealing with people on a day in day out basis, um, in a very intimate way,
That's
at
true.
the end of life, and it's got to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah. That's kind of a calling, I would
Yeah, I
think.
think so too. So I don't know that I would want that, to the point where I would, you know, like if I had a loved one say it, I would probably discourage them and be like, hey, like,
Hmm.
we think of something else.
One last question.
Yeah.
When you arrive at the pearly gates, what do you want to hear the Lord say to you, Joe?
Well done, right? You know, I could say something as simple as "Come on." I think I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Probably be. And here's your
Well,
grandparents.
oh, it's been a delight. Thank you so
Same.
much for spending time with me. It's
Thanks for
such
having me.
important work you do, and I admire you so much and pray for law enforcement. I mean, I just cannot understand people that are negative about
Yeah.
about people that keep us safe and keep others safe. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. There is more of the show ahead.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. At TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, Your Bank for Life.
So it's football season, and we can create your outdoor tailgating spaces that is actually a part of your home. Bifold doors that tie in the inside and the outside, and you can gain anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 square feet living space, all while taking in the big game, poolside. Call us at Gather & Co. Kitchen and Bath, where we can create your unique tailgating space.
Hey Waco, meet your new favorite email. It's called the Waco Buzz, the local newsletter that skips crime and chaos and gets straight to the good stuff. New restaurants, hidden gems, weekend events, and stories that make you proud to call Waco home. It's quick, free, and written by people who love Waco as much as you do. Join thousands of neighbors who already start their mornings with the Waco Buzz at thewacobuzz.com.
A journey into new thoughts, new cultures, new adventures. So what are you waiting for? Start your journey with Babbel now. Go to babbel.com or download the app.
Today, we're diving into Ralph Lauren Christmas Decor 2025, a celebration of classic holiday elegance that never goes out of style. From grand living rooms to intimate bedrooms, this season's Ralph Lauren-inspired looks redefine sophistication with cozy textures, heritage patterns, and a palette of deep reds, golds, and greens. Ralph Lauren Christmas Decor 2025, the art of classic holiday elegance for every room. Ralph Lauren Christmas Decor 2025 captures the essence of refined tradition and timeless sophistication for every room in your home. From the flicker of candles in a plaid-draped living room to the golden glow of a dinner table set with crystal and silver, every space reflects the art of classic holiday elegance. Deep reds, forest greens, and touches of gold create a palette that feels luxurious yet warm, echoing the charm of an old English manor. It's a celebration of heritage, craftsmanship, and cozy grandeur, a holiday style that balances richness with intimacy, transforming your home into a sanctuary of festive beauty and timeless design. There's something undeniably magical about Ralph Lauren's approach to Christmas, where nostalgia meets sophistication and every detail tells a story. The look is not about trends, but about creating a feeling of comfort, warmth, and elegance that endures year after year. Whether it's tartan plaids paired with velvet textures or flickering candlelight dancing across dark wood and crystal, this iconic style evokes the spirit of classic luxury. Ralph Lauren's Christmas 2025 proves that tradition never fades. It simply evolves with grace, bringing beauty and meaning to every corner of your festive home. Ralph Lauren's 2025 Christmas decor pays tribute to timeless charm and polished luxury. Imagine tartan plaids draped across armchairs, candlelight reflecting on mahogany wood, and velvet ribbons that whisper old-world elegance. Each detail feels intentional, evoking a Christmas that's both grand and heartfelt. Step into the heart of the home, where deep red tones blend with navy, gold, and forest green. A Ralph Lauren-inspired living room shines with plaid throws, antique brass candle holders, and roaring fireplaces framed by garlands of pine and holly. It's a space where classic meets comfort, and every glance tells a story of timeless tradition. In the dining room, Ralph Lauren's 2025 Christmas decor brings sophistication to the table. Picture crystal glassware, layered linens, and gold-trimmed dinnerware set atop dark wood. Add tartan napkins or leather-bound menu cards to elevate the setting. Perfect for an elegant Christmas dinner steeped in heritage charm. Ralph Lauren's Christmas bedrooms combine rich fabrics with refined comfort. Think plaid flannel sheets, cashmere throws, and accents of hunter green and burgundy. A soft glow from bedside candles and pine reeds above the headboard create a retreat that's cozy, romantic, and unmistakably Ralph Lauren.
At Mitzi, we believe the right light can transform any space. Mitzi has the perfect design for you. Beautiful, well-made lighting without the high price tag. Discover your perfect light at Mitzi.com. That's MITZI.com. Mitzi.
Send money abroad in just a few steps with Remitly. Sign up with your email, enter an amount, choose how your loved ones receive the money, enter your recipient's information, select a payment method, hit send, and relax. Download the Remitly app today.
It doesn't matter if your investment budget is small or big. All you need is Benzinga Pro and its powerful news alerts, price tracking, and portfolio monitoring. Subscribe now, and we'll skyrocket your portfolio today.
At Fullwell, we bring together the expertise of registered dietitians, MDs, and OBGYNs to give you the best fertility support. Fullwell, your trusted partner on your fertility journey. Visit us at fullwellfertility.com. Unlock a world of convenience with Mully Box, your one-stop solution for personalized subscription boxes delivered right to your door. Each box is tailored to your taste. Mullybox.com. That's MULLYBOX.com.